All right, we are back for episode 69 of Digital Divination. Jason, great to see you again.
Great to see you, John. How you been?
It's been good. It's been busy. I'm
Mm.
getting near the end of my teaching term, so we start week 8 of 10 on
Oh,
Monday,
okay.
and that's when everything starts getting a little more hectic for me. How about
That
you? How are things
that
at Renegade?
that feels fast. Renegade's doing all right. Yeah. Deep in the spooky season. Uh, just sort of watching all the movies and videos and waiting for. We record this on the Sunday before Halloween, so a couple more days left of that, and we're all good.
Yeah, what type of spooky shows are you watching?
So I'm actually pretty much enjoying the new Guillermo del Toro Cabinet of Curiosities series. I like a good anthology,
Mhm, mhm,
honestly,
mhm,
and that's been fun. Or two more left, basically. There's been some interesting stories. The last two I think probably ended up being the weakest so far because they're adapted Lovecraft stories.
mm, mhm.
Um, and in one of them, Crispin Glover is doing the most distracting accent that they could possibly be doing.
Yeah, yeah.
It's based off Pickman's model story, which is a pretty short story, so they really kind of padded out all the stuff. And he's Pickman in this, and
Mm.
it's like he's like I don't know if they're trying to do like he was trying to do like a Boston accent, but in because it's like also the 20s or whatever, so he's trying to like throw in a little bit of like yeah, see, it's the 20s. Yeah, but like it's like a
Yeah.
cross between Boston and New York with Cockney thrown in there. It's very distracting. It kind of just detracted a bit from the whole thing, honestly. But
Yeah, like
otherwise, they've been pretty good.
stereotypical, yeah, New England, that what people might think of then.
Yeah, but he's doing it bad.
Yeah,
He's
yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
saying "woik," like he's talking like Bugs Bunny in a lot of ways.
Oh, wow.
And so it's yeah, it's just distractingly bad, and, yeah, I like Crispin Glover generally in a lot of stuff because I like how
Mhm,
weird he is,
mhm,
and he
mhm,
can be weird in a lot of things, but he's just no one stopped him from being too weird. This and it's
mhm.
unfortunate because otherwise I think it's a good show. I also recommend it. There's good some really good performances and some good creature effects and stuff like that are good and spooky. What
You
about
have
you, John?
plans? Well, let me ask a
Sure,
question of you,
yeah,
then
go for it.
I'll yeah. Do you have plans for Halloween for tomorrow?
Not really. Uh there's a thing that we've been doing every year during since 2020, which is to do costumes in Animal Crossing New Horizons and meet up someone one of our friends picks a bunch of categories and then we do make some costumes in those categories and then meet up on an island, do a little costume parade, and then take screenshots. That's basically all we
Nice.
have planned. We're gonna rewatch Over the Garden Wall, of course, because that is
Mhm.
a now a fall staple. And yeah, that's about it. What about you? What about you?
Well, we've been finishing up Andor. It still
Okay,
has a
yeah.
couple episodes that haven't dropped yet, and that's pretty good. We finished up House of the Dragon and the Rings of Power, and both of
Mhm.
those had really tremendous cliffhangers. So I'm kind of waiting
Oh,
on season 2 for both of those.
yeah.
And but for tomorrow, so normally Monday night we would play at Ron's house for
Mhm.
Abomination Vault, and unfortunately, his kids got to go trick or treating or something, and so we're not
Kids.
gonna we're not gonna play. So I'll be home handing out candy, and I think I'm gonna dress up. I
Okay.
have I have a X-wing pilot outfit that
Oh,
it's on my
nice.
Facebook if you've seen that, and I think I'm gonna wear that to class tomorrow, and then I'll hand out
Okay.
candy wearing. And that's about the extent. We usually get about 70 to 100 trick or treaters. We did
Wow.
prior to COVID. I don't know what it's going to be like.
Yeah.
Well, we're right on the corner of a subdivision that is pretty popular. It's like got 45 houses. So, the parents drop off their kids, they run through the subdivision, they pick them up, and they go to another subdivision kind of place. So that's kind of the unfortunate thing is our dog barks a lot when he sees people coming. He's losing his hearing, so he can't hear
Oh.
anymore, but he'll see them through the window and he'll attack and do stuff. And so we got to keep him under wraps.
That's yeah, normally I would like to give out candy to trick or treaters, but our dog is it's too stressful for him to have people knocking on the door for, like, 3
Yeah.
hours straight or something like that. So we put up a little sign that says, "Please don't knock. We don't have candy." And we don't have candy. So
Yeah. Well, we have some my wife actually ran out to get some more chocolate 'cause,
mm.
I'm gonna give it to my student I'm gonna give candy to my students tomorrow, and, it always goes over better when there's more chocolates.
Oh, yeah, yeah, people love the
Yeah,
chocolate.
gotta do that. But getting back to, digital divination, so, the last couple episodes, we've talked about a couple things. 2 episodes ago, we talked about developing entire Starfinder adventure paths,
Mhm.
and then last episode, we talked about talked about mostly for both these. You
Sure.
talked about developing or writing, actually, an adventure, and we were talking about Junker's Delight, and I thought we would kinda wrap this up with discussion about how to develop a specific adventure. So not the overall arc, but a
Mhm.
specific adventure. And I was wondering if there's an adventure that you were the developer on that you particularly enjoyed developing that you want to talk about that as an example.
Yeah, yeah, and I think this would be a good example of something that's also slightly different because it's a real focused when you develop an adventure that's shorter, and it has to serve a certain purpose than just being adventure. It requires some different ways of looking at it, and I'm talking about the first Starfinder one shot, Band on the Run.
Hmm,
I think that was
fun.
it was
Yeah.
fun to sort of
Yeah.
concept. Luis Loza wrote it, and then like basically knocked it out of the park. So it was a real easy development pass, essentially.
Hmm. Hmm.
And then, I think it was sort of well received. It was interesting and weird, and we know, there was at least a couple actual plays of it out there on YouTube
Hmm.
of people really getting into it because it is different. It's a different kind of adventure. It's not what you might expect from something from Starfinder or from any sort of Pathfinder Starfinder type of game,
Hmm. Hmm.
and that was kind of the intent. So start from the beginning, if you don't mind, John. I will start from the beginning.
Feel free. Start at the beginning. I think that's a good place to start.
The intent of the one shots, and as we sort of probably by now realizing that it haven't panned out the way that they maybe wanted to, which is I think because there's not going to be any more at this
No
point.
more.
The one
Oh,
shots are kind of, as far as
yeah.
I thought, it might have been announced, but I think as far as I know, there's none of them are being developed after the one that's at least one that's attached to Drift Crashers, and then
Hmm.
whatever's going on in the Pathfinder land things. But the first one, it was also let's make content that's easy to stream. That was sort of the
Oh, I did not
goal
know
of
that.
it. It was
Yeah.
something that said, here's something you can play in one session, i.e., one 3 to 4 hour streaming session that's kind of quirky and unusual and sets people up for fun RP interactions. Maybe doesn't lean super hard on the rules,
Mhm,
that kind of stuff. So um, at the time, I think at this time, I was in the process of thinking about outlining Junker's Delight, so I kind of had music on the mind. As I
mhm,
mentioned in Junker's Delight, I almost wrote it was almost called Bot Scrap Blitz when it was set somewhere
right.
else. Then it was Junker's Delight, which is also another song reference, and so Band on the Run is also a song reference. If you are familiar with Paul McCartney's Wings, and if you're not, ask your grandfather, I guess.
Oh, no, don't
No,
make me feel so
I know,
old.
man, I know, I feel old too. Um,
Yeah,
it's just a sort of, I think it's it's not the name of the album, but it's a song you probably heard it on the radio. Um, I wanted to do something that was like, "Oh, let's do the road trip movie. A band needs to get to their concert on time.
right.
Quirky stuff happens to them, because they need to hitch a ride or lose their instruments or something like that."
Mhm,
Um, and then, the title kinda came out of that, basically, "Oh, let's just try that." And again, that was a sort of a semi-working title that I didn't think anyone would like because it was a direct reference. Like, that is
right.
literally the name of the song, instead of it being sort of a tweak on the name of a song, it is just the name of a song. And they were like, "Okay, fine, yeah." And I'm like, Do I tell I was like, "Do I tell them that's a Wings song, or am I they got everyone's gotta know that's a pretty famous Wings song, people know it."
Yeah,
But, there you go. And then I've been sort of like Luis had been kind of wanting to write a Starfinder adventure for a while, and we hadn't. like, got the schedules lined up in a way that he could write something for, like, the adventure path or for modules are still just beginning at this point. So I got him to I was like, "Yeah, this is a short thing. Luis, you wanna do this?" And he's like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah, that's great." And then he went and sort of peppered in more music and band references than you can shake a stick at, and I
Mhm.
basically, I love every one of them. So I mean, the general idea is that, the pre-gens that you get, you're all in one band. You're trying to get to this, uh, basically concert that it's gonna make or break you if you play well there, right? Some agents are there that for a music company. It's a classic tale. And then, but of course, their van breaks down. They've got to hitch a ride. That presents unique problems, I think, in the Starfinder
Mhm.
world of things. So, I wanted it to be in space, but also space is very, very big. So it's like you've only got 2 hours to get somewhere. Well, that's like like such a short distance in space,
Right.
right? So it's just sort of like, oh, this is maybe like a day, and sort of set it kind of near where the concert's going to be, relatively speaking, and then just kind of like hand wave some stuff. It's just like they can get there. They'll be able to get there in time. If they, basically make these checks and stuff, they'll be able to get there pretty much in a way that makes some physical sense. Starting thinking about that, I got to be thinking about some sort of a location that we had put in the diaspora. I think in
Mhm.
Pack Worlds even. And at this point, it was I think early on it was probably called in development. This is way back in the beginning of Starfinder. I think it was called Shellin Station, but Shellin wasn't. There was some concern. It was like, well, people aren't. If people are coming from Pathfinder, they'll know who Shellin is. And that's Shellin is the goddess of beauty, in Pathfinder Galarian world. Um, but people coming into Starfinder were like, that's just the name. So we just started to use her epithet, which is the songbird, which is called
Right.
Songbird Station, which is arguably a better name, honestly. It's a little
Mhm.
more flavorful. It's sort of you kind of know what you're getting, right? It's sort of, and then we decide, oh, this is a music arena that people concerts play concerts at, and on an asteroid in the diaspora.
And that was introduced in Eleanor's, scenario she wrote about, Star Sugar Heart Love. That was at Songbird
Yes,
Station as well.
yeah, yeah. We sort of, I think it was first in Pact Worlds. Um,
No, this came
uh,
before
did
Packworlds.
it come from Pact Worlds?
Yeah,
So
yeah, it was
at
first.
some point, I swear there was some confusion about the name because yeah. Anyway, either way, yeah, yeah, it was established pretty early on as a concert
Right.
venue through scenarios and through the Pack Worlds book. Had to go there. It'd be like, oh yeah, there's going to be a big concert here that you've got to get to. And it was fun to sort of like think about when outlining the process. This is again sort of talking about how this stuff gets developed. Write an outline. What happens? I sort of do the beats. This is sort of you got a band. Their van breaks down. They've got to get a ride, and then of course what happens during that ride. There's always when you get a ride from. I'm just picturing a lot of people with like the shadiest possible person they could get a ride from, and who's
Right.
gotta like, "I gotta make a stop," and the heroes of the story have no say in the matter, right? Because they
Mhm.
gotta go, and so he pulls over and does something completely probably illegal. And so I wanna have that happen. That's sort of where there's actually, like, an actual fight. This sort of
Right.
only fight kind of guaranteed in the whole thing, which is good because, we wanna have this be done in 3 or 4 hours. And then he leaves them, and then they've gotta, do some other things, and I was thinking that would be a point where they have to, like, figure out a way to go faster or have a chase of some kind, get out of the
Right.
chase, get to the station, have a little maybe possibly an altercation there about "Oh, you didn't come for you weren't here early enough to go for the sound check, someone else is taking your
Right.
time." Convince them or beat them up if that's what you wanna do. And then have a couple more checks to sort of see how well you do at the end. That's the sort of skeleton of the thing.
Mhm.
Um, and at the part 2, I wanted to, um, named the pregens because
Mhm.
I really liked the name Wine Knight. I
Right.
don't know why. And he's the Yosoki keyboard player, and that art
Yeah.
came out so good. And thinking of all the people, let's make a kind of a mishmash. It's a garage band situation.
Right.
Thinking a little bit about Wild Stallions too, right? Maybe they're not very good, but
Yeah,
I wanted to make them, give them
yeah.
professional musicians, stuff like that. And poking around, sort of like with the team at the time, I was like, gotta think of I couldn't come up with a band name. So I kind of filtered it around, and I believe it was John Compton who came up with the name Neon and Noqual, which
Mhm.
is feels like a good hair metal kind of band kind of name, right?
Yeah,
Because it's got it's neon is obviously all bright lights, and with the Noqual is sort of a hard metal, right? That's also kind of shiny and magicy, right? And so it kind
yeah.
of hits a lot without being too like rat anthrax, too hardcore, right? It's sort of like more
Right,
like kind
right.
of
Sounds techno with the
winger, and it
neon.
sounds a little bit of
Yeah,
techno. Yeah, it could be
yeah,
kind of anything.
yeah,
And I think at this point we had a couple other band names, kind of like besides
yeah.
Star Sugar Heart Love, kind of
So
floating
did you
around.
give the band name to Luis then?
Yes,
Or
we
is that
had come up with
okay.
the band name because at that point we wanted to get some cover art early.
Right, right,
So
right,
I had to
right.
come up with the
Okay.
band name and wanted to make it kind of look more like a poster, or get an idea what it looks like, and that's why it kind of looks kind of neon-y and kind
Right,
of uh, Tron-y in a little way.
right. That's
Um,
what I was thinking too when I saw it, yeah.
yeah, wireframes and stuff like that. Adam Vick, who was doing the sort of art direction and actually made this cover himself on the clock, and he is actually like a band guy, like he's a music guy.
Yeah, and he
Um, uh,
does album covers
he
too. When
does
I interviewed him,
exactly.
that's one of the things he does. So that's
Yeah, I
awesome.
was like,
Yeah,
oh, it's perfect.
yeah,
Exactly. Yeah, we didn't know
yeah,
that going in, and he's like, no, I do
yeah,
albums. Just make a cool album cover, and
yeah,
he made a pretty cool ship flying through
yeah.
this sort of cyber verse, right?
Mhm.
Um, so that's where it all sort of started. And it was kind of I feel like it was a little handed down that um the pregens would be fourth level. I think I would have
Okay.
maybe preferred them to be first level because also it's a little weird how we got to give them classes because that's how
Right,
Starfinder works, but also they're four members of a band. And some of it makes
right.
sense. Envoy makes sense, right? You gotta,
Mhm.
mechanic makes sense. Oh, that's the tinker or whatever. Technomancer could kind of make sense. I'm doing all that, the stuff. Um, but it's also, well, you gotta throw in probably a fighty type person. That's why the drummer is a soldier. It's like, we go, oh, you're a former soldier, right? But they're also, since they're fourth level, they're also all pretty good at those things. But
Right,
they're more about a band. They're
right.
in a band as well. So it's a little weird in my opinion to sometimes do these sort of conceptual groups for pre-gens if they
Mhm.
don't fit into sort of class. Just I think all of them ended up basically having the icon theme.
Mm,
Oh no, I gave them different themes too because it was like should they all be icon themes? That seems a little
mhm.
samey,
So
right?
did you write the pre-gens or did Luis write the pre-gens?
He came up he did the stats on them,
Okay.
but I think I picked out, this is this person, the drummer is the soldier, the the
Mhm, mhm.
bassist is the mechanic, and she's also likes to tinker with the
Right.
van and stuff like that. Just sort of giving a little threads on their personalities, but then
Mm,
Luis took and sort of expanded on them.
right. Right, right. Yeah, I ran that,
Oh yeah,
actually
how'd it go?
4th of July 2020, like, right when the pandemic started, and, I had a home group, and we were all kinda concerned about things, but
Hmm.
we were all isolating, and since we were all self-isolating, we thought, "Well, we can do this one thing together." And
Exactly.
it was fun. We had actually a 5th player,
Okay.
and, so what he had actually done is rolled a 4th level musician to play. So we had another musician
Yeah,
that
yeah,
was
yeah.
added in. So that was kind of fun. In the beginning, near the beginning of that, you start off, you go to a venue trying to get the ride, right?
I mean, yes, your van breaks down near basically what is a biker bar, right? There's always
Yeah.
that scene in these road trip movies where you go to a
Yes.
place where you definitely
Yes.
do not belong.
Yeah.
And then you've gotta be like, I need some help," and chaos sort of
Yeah.
ensues.
Yeah. So when that happened, it really reminded me of the Blues Brothers when they go to that western. I don't know if you're familiar
Sure.
with the Blues, but
I'm
you
familiar
know,
enough with them, yeah.
yeah, yeah, and they play both kinds of music there, and so
Oh,
I
good.
played up that whole thing, with
Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
bikers and stuff, and and they're trying to figure out what to play, because it was not their kind of music and stuff.
Yeah.
That was a lot of fun, and that ate up actually a big chunk of time,
Oh,
just the
great.
RP on that. Yeah, so it was good. Yeah.
That's fun, yeah. I remember, when I think, like, the Dragons and Things group was, doing a lot of actual
Mhm.
plays for I know stuff, and when they played it through, I heard there was a lot of actual, like, singing, which
Oh,
is
wow.
I never got around to watching it,
Yeah,
but I was like, "Oh,
we
I
didn't do
gotta
that.
figure out." Yeah. Well, I mean, that's, up to the group how much you wanna, like, have someone
Yeah,
do something actually
yeah.
musical.
Mhm. What other, song drops were in there? I don't remember them all. Y that
I
you
can we can go through a lot of them because there are quite a few of them, and if I can remember which,
Yeah.
ones they are, and they are all pretty much from Luis. I just said "Band on the Run," like, the names of, the name of the band is not really sort of a reference to anything else, except I just thought it, sounded kinda cool, and
Right.
then, like, the idea of it being, there's something about stuff Ayo. No, Azure Note, and I think that was actually from you. But just starting off, the band's van is called, Mama's Little Helper, which is,
Mm,
of course,
okay.
a reference
Yeah,
to Rolling Stones' Mother's Little Helper.
yeah.
Um, see, I mean, I mean, just sort of mostly in the headings. So some of the okay, so a lot of the references in this are going to be for the GM only, right?
Right,
They're not
right,
going to
right, right.
see the players aren't going to see the names of the headings of the
Oh,
encounters and stuff like
yeah,
that.
that maybe
Road to
that's why they didn't
Nowhere,
notice as much. Yeah,
yeah, yeah, no, it's a Road to Nowhere. Should we stay or should we go?
yeah,
The boys are back in town. I think is something
yeah.
like that happened. But the name of the ship, Mom's Little Helper, or as it's often abbreviated throughout the whole thing, is MLH. Um, oh yeah, even the sidebar titles are up on the stage and floating in a most peculiar way, which is of course a reference
Mhm.
to Space Odyssey,
Yeah,
Space Oddity. But there is actually one more Jukebox Heroes. It's also the event.
yep.
Um, I can't remember if I named Buzz the android who runs the sort of biker bar diner
Mm,
situation. I don't remember that. I don't think that's a reference. But when you get to the NPC who's going to give you a ride from there, a Vesk soldier, his or I should say, I think their ship is also a reference. It's called Saint of Anger, which I think is a Metallica
mm, mm.
uh, uh, album.
I'm not familiar with that, I gotta say, so,
Okay.
yeah.
That was actually one that I kind of filtered in there because Lewis hadn't named the ship, but he named the next ship, which is what happens when um, the Carden says, "Oh, the Vesk that's helping out, I got to make a stop here," and then it goes to a ship called the RS Shelter, which is
Mm,
another Rolling Stones reference. Gimme
mhm,
Shelter.
mhm.
So that's a fun one. And of course, RS is for Rolling Stone, but we don't say what else what it's for.
Right.
Um, But then, there was a thing that's yes, I had sort of, said to Lisa, "Okay, at some point, Carden or, the desk, um, meets up with this gang, and the gang's like, 'You crossed us for the last time,' and then it's when a gunfight happens. So I knew there was a gang gonna be here, but I didn't name the gang, and that Luis named them the Diamond Tashtaris, which is a David
Diamond
Bowie
Dogs.
reference. Diamond Dogs,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah,
So they're these Diamond Testari troopers, or you have a little fight with
yeah,
them. Um, and then they chase you, basically. If you once you get away, they chase you, and then Cardin goes, "I'm out of here," and then ejects and leaves you in with
yeah,
their ship.
yeah,
And you've got to pilot it, and figure out a way to escape the Diamond Testaris and get to the Songbird Station on.
mhm,
Um, The name of the band that sort of takes your, to sort of taking your spot, um, is Snowfall Renaissance, which I don't know if it's a direct reference to anything. I think just Luis liked the name of it. He sounded it was kind of like it just sounded like a kind of a band name, like
mhm, mhm.
I think of what the reference to what it kinda sounds like. Can't think of it. But, this, whatchamacallit, Riforian band is up on stage, and you're why is Snowfall because winter,
Right.
winter-born Riforians. But I also we made them like hydrocore, which means they play their musical instruments in water. It's just to do something weird and sci-fi about it. So they're basically dressed in like beach outfits in a lot of ways, or
Yeah.
wetsuits, I should say. And whether or not you can convince them to get off or go out there and beat them up, and then you go out there and you play, and that's sort of like a lot of it pretty encapsulated. So again, a lot of the references are uh uh not going to be only for the reader, right? The
Right.
final thing is just called "Hit Me with Your Best Shot," of course,
Right.
or, and that's just sort of play the music, and maybe if you want to do some other throw some cool spells around and see how well you impress the record executives. Um, that's basically it. Um, there's and then Luis did sort of name a bunch of other bands sort of at the end. It's like once they're off the stage, the band gets to watch other notable performances from acts such as Bavina and the Jumbles, Handlow Muggins, The Metropolitan Silence, and Veiled Love. Um, uh, and then there's a surprising encore guest stars of Strawberry Machine Cake. Got to throw them in there, and then you've
Mhm.
got to basically another band called the Tarnished Battle Mechs. Drives you back to your regular van. It's just sort of like fun Starfinder band names, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
making up, like, pop culture like, fake pop culture, I said this
Mhm.
on Divination before, but I just love making up fake pop culture. I love when other people make up fake pop culture. It's
Mhm.
just
Mhm.
I don't know, just so it just fills me with some sort of warmth
Mhm.
in my very heart.
I think, Alex Agunas actually has a couple of,
Oh, yeah.
Starfinder, they're not infinite, so they're third
They're
party things from his Everybody Games, series where they're about pop culture things, and I think, George Loki Williams has done some pop culture things as well, for Starfinder.
Alex Agunas and I kind of arrived at the same thing, different times and in different venues, sort of the same name of a, fake theme park. Uh, and it was kind of unusual that I had no idea that he had come up with it as well. And he's like, What's this
Mm.
going on?" Like, "Oh, I don't. Oh my god, I had no idea." But it was the thing I was doing was sort of for my own, doing a stream event and tinkering with the Pathfinder 2e rules to sort of do a post-apocalyptic
Mm.
uh,
Mhm.
thing. And but also set in an abandoned, post-apocalyptic theme park called Whimsy World.
Mm. Okay.
And it's very much, a cross between Walt Disney World and Wally World from
Yeah.
National Lampoon's Vacation. And apparently, Alex has a Whimsy World in one of his pop culture things that's a whole planet amusement park for Starfinder. It's kind of pretty.
Mm. Mhm. Mhm. So when you were, doing this development, did you interact with Luis quite a bit? It sounds like you know a lot about what he did, and
He
normally with a turnover, he wouldn't make all those notes, would he?
some freelance authors are make but give you more notes than others, honestly.
Mhm.
And Luis was one of them. He's just like at the beginning. I want to think in the email he sent to me, it was like, "Oh, I'm going to be doing a lot of these references because the thing is called Band on the Run right off the bat.
Mhm.
So why not?" And I'm like, "Yeah, why not?" And then he was like, he literally he did a lot of like citations essentially. He said,
Mhm.
Mama's Little Helper. This is Mother's Little Helper, Rolling Stones. And I think he even was like even like given
Yeah.
the year or something. I don't kind of think he
Yeah.
went, like, real detailed on that. And
Yeah.
every once in a while, we were, again, he was, my colleague at the time, of course, I could have chatted at him. I think every once in a while I would chat at him, but like, "This is bonkers. Why would you" "Oh,
Yeah.
another reference. I get it." Just sort of saying yay for that. But I didn't have to ask him very many questions because, um, he's very good writer, so
Mhm.
wasn't much to sort of ask him about.
And once you got
No.
Go
Sorry,
ahead.
not much story there, sorry. It was just pretty much because it was pretty smooth going, that it was just like,
Yeah.
"Oh," I think I was like, "I'm just gonna give this, I'm gonna give card and ship and name," and he's like, "Oh, yeah, cool, whatever."
So you gave him the outline, he kinda filled it out. Did he have a milestone with this or just a final deliverable?
Oh, gosh, I don't remember the specifics. It was such a short piece, and
Right.
I trusted Luis enough, I don't know if there was a milestone. There was basically I gave him the outline, I think he maybe just sort of, like, had some questions for me. We hashed out a couple little things, and then he just went with it because this is e. I would say this is possibly even shorter than a society scenario.
It is, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I
I'm
mean time
thinking I
wise, yes, word wise.
yeah,
So
page count, so typical society scenario is about 10,000 words, and
mhm.
my guess is this was probably
It was about
6,000, 7,000.
6 or 7,000, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, just from looking at, I don't have the PDF in front of me. It's actually I have a printout on the shelf right behind me
Oh,
of it.
nice. Yeah.
I think it was like 18 pages, 19 pages.
Yeah, that's what the 4 pages, the more than
Right,
4 pages of pre-gens because we printed those separately. They
right,
have a little bit of
and
backstory and
and there was a separate PGen pack too, did you know that?
oh yeah,
You
yeah,
can
yeah.
get
I
the
don't think the
yeah,
but I don't think the pre-gens themselves are in the adventure part. If you download the
right, yeah, it
but if you
was like
download the
kind of a
file, you get
two-part
two
thing.
files. Yeah.
Right, right. Yeah, I thought it was I thought it was a lot of fun, to do that. That's why I was kinda curious about it. And when he turned in the final then, what do you do then? Even with somebody who's a seasoned, writer and developer
Mhm.
himself, what do you do as a developer as you go through that?
It's just a lot. For someone who's seasoned, it's mostly just kind of a editing pass almost.
Mm,
I'm reading through it. I'm checking things. I'm formatting, reformatting probably just because I had it sort of drilled into me a little bit to strip out everyone's formatting and then
yeah.
reformat it in a
That's what
new Word
Ron does
document.
too. He tells me, yeah.
It's sort of like helps if there were any kind of weird coding corrupt in someone's word processing program or their own
Right.
files, I get it, and as much as we tell people to sort of make sure things are formatted, I'm like, "Yeah, make sure you do your best to format it because I'm gonna be reformatting it anyway," honestly.
Mhm,
Um, and that's fine because, it helps me sort of track my progress, in a development. And it was just sort of obviously it's always the same thing. It's like read it through, check see if there's any real sticky spots, maybe start there, but otherwise just sort of start from the beginning and kind of move through and be like, okay, this is good, this is good, this is good. Tweak this word, tweak this sentence structure here and there to make sure that this is clear enough. Is there anything that's not going to be clear? Uh, Explain it a little more. Something seems too complicated, maybe take it out. For this one, it was just this needs to be simple, but also provide a lot of different ways at coming at problems. Because
mhm,
you're just sort of given like, well, eh, eh, you know, to be fair, because it is a sort of 4 hour at most experience, it's pretty linear, right?
mhm,
And it is a little I think even maybe Luis even it's kind of railroady. You do this and then you do this and you do this and you do this. There's not a whole lot of like branching options here. It's more like here's your
right,
problem. How do you want to solve it? And you can give your depending on your group or stream how much you want to be like, oh, here are the 5 things you can do, or just be like, what do you want to do, and then adjudicate from there. That's up to the GM, of course. But
mhm,
when we do something like that, you always want to here are 5 options that could work, and here's how they field checks you might what happens if and then there's like hey, what happens if you just mess it up completely? The
mhm,
show must go on, right? So how do you move on forward from basically a failure? Uh, and then that's just sort of adventure design.
mhm. So, now this, the one shot was a PDF only.
Mhm.
You
Yeah.
still have to make a copy fit pass on that to make sure it fits
Yeah.
on some pages,
Yeah.
or because it can be however long, it doesn't matter?
It doesn't matter how long it is, but like, so just for you know ways to make it look clean, or at least in
Mhm.
terms of the way that we've been laying things, Paizo have been laying things out. Yes, it needs to go to the bottom of every page, but then that last page can have some filling
Okay.
up every. And then there's some art that gets thrown in, minimum amount of art because it is kind of a free product, not a free product, but a digital only product that yes, since it's
Mhm.
selling, we put enough art in it to be like this is stuff you can
Mhm.
show people on the stream and whatnot.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, yeah.
although
Do
and
you know
that sort of
why
got
they
included.
yeah, do you know why they decided not to do any more one shots like that? Or
I think they
streams?
just aren't making any money, and they're not worth the effort to put into them. I don't know, like
Oh, okay.
we basically on the Starfinder side of things. I did one, Jason Tondro did one. Then we found out that Thurston was taking over the sort of digital
Right.
products line from, and it sort of fell under the purview of the sort of what sort of became the digital products uh, department, which includes all of the society scenario too, right? So Thurston
Mhm.
did the next two, uh, and I think during that time he was analyzing how they were doing and how they were being received and whatnot, and
Mhm.
grabbed them. He was doing the Pathfinder ones at that point too.
Right. Right.
Before were probably being done by I'm not even sure if Ron, maybe it was Bullman did the first one. I don't know who developed those things on the Pathfinder side of things.
I thought Thirsty was doing those well.
He might have been doing them from the beginning too. I'm not sure. To be
I remember
honest.
him talking about them on stream somewhere.
Yeah.
Kinda related to, the naming that's in here. I'm gonna
Hmm.
change gears a little bit.
Sure.
So, I was told, I don't remember if it was by you or by Jake, that the person that develops the last book in an Adventure Path series gets to do the naming, some titling in the back that goes on the back page.
Yeah.
I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I know
Is
exactly
that
what you're talking about. Something I
okay,
didn't know about when I first started until I
yeah,
got edited the last uh, volume of Giant Slayer, and noticed that in the back, in the very, very back, in the very legally part where we say printed in China, so forth and so
right,
on, uh, after the words printed in China, the developer of the AP puts a little quote there. It's often a quote from somebody, maybe a or in a book or a movie or whatever that is reflective of a way that of the whole adventure path.
right, yeah, something like that.
Something like that. It's just sort of open to, just a sort of
Yeah,
little Easter egg that if you know that they're there, you can
yes,
go and find them now and read them.
yes.
And we carried that over into Starfinder, so that's all of the Starfinder APs have that on the last volume only. So I wonder
So,
if
Horizons of the Vast, who did
mhm,
that, the last book on that? Who
that would
developed
be
the last
me. It would be me.
okay. Yeah, so because I remember seeing a couple of those as they were coming in, thought, "Oh, that's kinda interesting. Oh, that's interesting." And then I think Jake must have told me that you developed them, and that's how they came about. So what's the theme of those?
Well, they're just sort of whatever's appropriate to the adventure path plot, essentially.
No, right, but
Oh,
so your choice of words that you put in the
okay.
back of that, what did you base that theme on?
Do you mean the back of the
The
oh, you mean the
back.
tagline? Okay, so
Yes,
I'm
the
thinking of 2 different things.
taglines.
Okay, the
Yes.
taglines that are on the back covers. Yes, this is a different thing entirely.
Okay.
So, the thing I mentioned is still true. Go look
Yeah.
those up if you don't know
Yeah.
about that. Look on volume 6 of every or
Yeah.
volume 3 on 3 Line Adventure Pass. Go back in the very last page where it says all the legal text and the OGL,
Yeah.
and then where it says printed in China, there'll be a little quote. Now, what you write on the back of things, the sort of
Yes.
promo copy, the back
Yes.
cover
The promo for the
copy,
next thing or
the
whatever.
tagline. Well, it's a
Yeah.
tagline. It's on the back
For
cover,
the
right?
thing.
Like
Yeah.
and we'll probably end up talking maybe a little bit about this last time. I mean, next somewhere in the future. But I recently got my contributor copy
Yes.
of the Dead
Yes.
Sons collected hardcover, and each one of those volumes has a thing. The first one is like a ship without a crew, whatever. But then like
Yeah.
the the cover had to have a different one entirely, and that's where I just said a threat to all life, and that's just sort of generally applicable to the adventure, right? There's some sort of thing.
Right.
Sometimes it's a pun, sometimes it's not. All books generally used the Pathfinder ones have stopped doing this, I think, a little bit, but
Oh.
all Pathfinder books have essentially even the campaign settings, modules, player companions. There'll always be a little kind of like a pithy little eye catching blurb. And now I loved writing those because also, and I'll get to your question in a moment, because
Yes.
when I used to edit logic puzzles, uh, those logic puzzles each have a little story, and each of those have a little title, and it was really fun to kind of make up a title that was kind of like thematic to whatever the puzzle's story
Right.
was, whatever kind of
Right. Right. Right.
thing. So you get this beep, put in puns and or punctuate things weird. If I recall, like the first ones I did, well, not the first ones I did, but like against the Aeon Throne, I was very happy that the first two I was very happy with because the first one is uh, Gorillas in the Mist, but Gorilla Guerl because you are
Right. Right.
doing the resistance in a planet that has a lot of mist.
Yeah.
Right, that's it's a movie, and the second one is Escape from the Prison Moon. The code of that is called Jailhouse Rock. I thought that was very clever. I'm very proud of that one. But we're talking about Horizons of the Vast, which I don't know
Yes,
if
and I
anyone has
want
noticed about this.
no spoilers on that, but it's got a very distinct theme, and
It
I want
does.
people to know
Oh,
what the theme is, to want
do you want
to
me
go look it up. I don't
go
want you to
find the
tell.
theme. I'm not gonna tell the theme. Yes, look at all 6 volumes of,
Yes.
the back covers of Horizons of the Vast and see if you can parse the theme out. I don't think anyone noticed I was doing it as I was doing
Yes.
it.
Yeah, the
And then
first couple, it's not obvious, and then when you
it's
get
not
all the way
obvious.
through, it's like,
You're like,
"Okay,
"Wait a
I know
minute."
exactly what's going on here. This is crazy."
Yeah. I
Ah,
would I would switch a couple if I could go back in time, I would switch a couple of them around and maybe do a little some plan them out a little more ahead of time.
yeah, yeah.
Um, but for instance, in a similar vein, if you look at all the back cover taglines for Threefold Conspiracy, that was not technically mine to come up with. But I kind of had a weird idea about it early on when Chris Sims was doing it. But then Chris Sims left halfway through, and I was actually copy fitting the first volume when it came through.
Okay.
So I got to do them, and they're basically
Yeah,
it's like don't trust your memories, don't trust your friends, don't. It was just basically don't trust the
yeah,
something because it's all about getting the rug pulled out from under you every
yeah,
single
yeah.
time. And I thought that was a nice thematic, and I planned that out. That's one I actually planned out ahead of time.
Mhm, mhm,
Most of the time, though, these get written kind of in. It's copy fit time. You have to fill the back cover with something.
mhm.
What is it? And then if whatever, the editors will look at it, and if it's completely off base, then they'll say something, but, I don't think anyone noticed, so and
Well, this
if
is
they
a
did, it
great
didn't matter.
yeah, this is another part of the developer job that,
Mhm.
not a lot of people know, and, I because of my generation, I really appreciated those ones
Fair.
that you did for Horizons of the Vast, and so some of our younger listeners may actually not get them because of that.
That's some
So,
there's
yeah,
there's a theme there, but they're also kind of,
yeah.
known phrases, right? They're not
Yes. That is
gibberish
true
or
too.
anything like that. There's no
Yeah.
code, it's not a code, it's just
Yes.
these phrases that are on the back of these covers have a kind of a theme.
Yes. Well, excellent. Well, you showed that, the hardcover for Dead
Mhm.
Sons, and, I have all the individual ones, and so I don't know if I need to buy the whole hardcover. What was added? Was anything added in addition to just kind of slapping them together?
It was I would say some tweaking more than I would say added.
Oh,
All Yeah,
like the
there's
last
just some
encounter in the first book?
yes.
Okay,
And make
good.
sure that is, appropriate to the,
Yeah,
stat block that came out for that same
yeah,
creature in the 2 or 3. So
yeah,
that I
yeah.
think, I may have even just said, "Go read the" because there were some points where I was just sort of like, "Oh, we have the stats for these now somewhere else, so it's possible
Mhm.
to just" yeah, indeed, mainly because yes, right, because this one would have been in the back. The Gragagal was in the back of the first Adventure Path volume,
Shh,
so it
you
would have
said
been
the
the
name.
full stat.
Okay. Yes.
No, it's fine.
Yeah, okay.
It would have been in there, and so now it just points to the Alien
Oh,
Archive
that's not the issue. I
page.
have you played that first book?
No,
Okay.
not really.
Have you heard what
I know of it.
happens
Yeah,
to 50% of the groups that go through that last encounter?
working as designed, I think.
Okay.
Working as
Yes.
intended. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, okay. Well, we could talk
but
about that later.
yeah, we can talk about this some other time.
Yeah. So what I wanted to suggest,
Hmm.
for our next episode, so this is something for both of us to think about. So we've been talking adventure paths here. I wanna do a top 5 list. Top
Hmm.
5 list of our favorite adventures,
Okay.
and you could pick any adventure that you like. So it can be a scenario, it can be a one shot, it can be a module, it could be, a
Hmm.
book and an adventure path, but it's an individual adventure, not a whole stream of them.
Yeah, yeah.
And so each of us we'll kind of share our top 5 and why we think they kind of fit in there. And I think that'll be
Okay.
a kind of a fun exercise to share for folks.
I promise not to pick anything that I've written.
No, you can do that. If you've
I don't
written
wanna
it, I think
be
that'd be fun.
okay, I may do one that I've written,
Yeah,
but
if you really like it, I mean,
but that but it's from a different I would be w I'll if I do, it'll be from a caveat of, like, this is I like it because I liked writing it more than anything else,
yes,
but
yeah. Well,
yeah.
that's yeah, but our favorites for
Yeah.
whatever reason. So I think that'll be a fun one.
Yeah, let's do it.
Right. Well, this has been a lot of fun, Jason.
Indeed. Thanks for letting me talk a lot again, John.
Well, you know what? That's why I have you on the show. I
Oh,
do
fair
3
enough.
podcasts, so I need to save my voice on this one.
Yes, this is the one where you don't have to talk as much and you don't have
Yeah.
to do, too much thinking.
Well, I will talk more, and I do think quite
Sure,
a
yes.
bit, so,
I
yeah.
I know you do, I know you do. When we talk
It's
about our top 5s,
yeah, that
we'll split the air time evenly, I think.
yeah, yeah, for sure. Well, I'm John.
And I'm Jason, and this has been Digital Divination.